So I called him last year, sometime last year, I think in the summer of last year, end of the summer. And obviously I told him I had a buyer, and he told me he would eventually sell, but he wasn't ready yet because his mom was in the hospital. So I knew obviously that there was going to be a potential seller there. So I kept the communication with him. I would call him, every couple of weeks, see how, and basically just ask him about his mom. How's your mom doing, and et cetera, et cetera. So till finally one day I called him. He told me my mom had passed away. So then I gave him some time, called him back, and he says, yeah, I'm ready to sell now. And he told me he had another one of the tenants was going to buy. Was looking to buy, and made him an offer. So it didn't. I called him back again, asked him about how that was going. He told me it's not really happening. They didn't qualify. So I told him immediately. I said, you know what? I got to show this building to the buyer who had an interest last year. So I told him, listen, can I show the building? I have a buyer. I want to show the building. And then I called, the buyer, and the guy that was interested. He said, yeah, let's go see it. I set up the appointment. We went to see it, and he told me he had another offer from. And eventually, I found out that it was from Marcus and Millichap. So I waited till the buyer left. And I went to his office. I spoke with him and his brother, who's also a realtor. And then he gave me all the details on the offer. He showed me the offer. And then he said he didn't want to take it because it was under the price that they wanted. So I asked him what he wanted. And eventually I said to him, listen, why don't we list it? You don't need to sign anything from me. Let's expose it to the market. You've gotten 2 offers without even exposing the property to the market. Everybody's going to ask you to sign something. I've had a relationship with you. I've been talking to you for the past 5 months.
Are you talking about the retail?
The retail, yeah. Is that what you're talking about? The retail,
yeah. So with regards to the retail, highlight. So Julio, obviously we're a small boutique brokerage, right? Commercial. We're not retail experts. We're not a retail firm. We're more industrial focused. But in this scenario, you bumped into this specific prospect. How did you bump into him?
Well, Frank, which was the seller of the warehouse, the commercial kitchen, he told me this is really he wanted a property like this.
Oh, he wanted retail. He wanted to buy retail.
He wanted retail.
You created a list, right, in an area for retail, and you started prospecting, right?
Well, I showed him there was a property that was listed in that area, right, at that time, and we actually, I think we went to see it. He didn't like it, so this one was close to the other property. So when I was looking at the other one, I saw this one, and it caught my attention because, based on Frank's descriptions, this is something along the lines that I knew he wanted.
Okay, so you researched the owner.
I researched the owner. They've owned the property for a long time, and I said this could be a potential. I use it as an excuse. I said if it doesn't work for Frank, there's a potential, of a listing here because it's a corner retail. It's in Palm Avenue, Hialeah. Newer construction. So I use that as an excuse to give him a call. And so I have a buyer. And then, immediately he said,
this is the hunting approach, guys. So Julio is hunting at this point. He's not farming, right?
Right. Yeah.
Retail is not our asset type that we're going after, but he's hunting because he has a 1031 that he needs to fulfill for his client.
Right.
So he's hunting right now.
So yeah, that's basically the conversation. And once he told me his mom was at the hospital and that eventually they were going to sell, he did say eventually we're going to sell. But right now, my mom is in critical condition. She's in the hospital. So actually what I did is I told him, I set up a meeting with him. And then I went to meet him to tour the space, and then, introduce myself. I told him who I was. Explained to him why my buyer liked the property, that he was ready to go. It's going to be a cash offer. He said, yeah, but we're not ready to sell. So basically what I did is I kept.
So you identified, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm kind of highlighting different points so that people understand. So Julio identifies one of the 5 Ds, right? And one of the D's of motivation to sell, which is either death, disease, divorce, dividends, and what was the other one?
I never remember the 5th one.
Okay. Well, it was death, disease, divorce, dividends, and I forgot the other one. So he identifies there's the mother's sick, they're not doing well, and there's possibly an opportunity here that they may sell. So you continue, you keep in touch.
Well, yeah. Dividends was another one here because I forgot to mention that he is actually occupying more than 40% of the property. one of the owners. There's three brothers, right? But the brother that I got a hold of, he's occupying more than 40% of the property, and his business is not doing well. They're doing very bad. So he also expressed that to me. That's one of the other motivations for him to sell, because his business is not doing well.
Okay.
Right. So obviously I knew that it was going to be eventually he was going to sell. I just wanted to make sure that I kept in touch with him. You know, every couple of weeks or so, I will call him, ask him about his mom. I just called to ask him about his mom. That's really what my conversation was, until eventually one day I called him, and he told me, unfortunately, you know, that his mom had passed. You know, I gave him my condolences, and obviously I didn't mention anything about the property then. Didn't want to do that. Then called him a couple of weeks later, asked him how he was doing. You know, he obviously they already buried his mom and everything else. And then that's when we started talking, you know, about a possible sale of the property. Right.
Right. That was good. That's good. As far as like you timing everything, you know, obviously it's an unfortunate situation. We don't wish, you know, these times on anyone, but you know, when you turn the hunting approach into more of a farming approach, where you're worried more, you're focused on the relationship, right? Which is important. A lot of people don't want you to always talk about the property or what the deal is, or you have somebody, and that hunting approach rubs off the wrong way many times. You got to be very delicate and careful. And I'm talking to you young guys, new guys in this industry, because, you know, if you're always going for the hunting approach, it's almost like swinging in baseball, and you're swinging for a home run all the time. And you're going to miss, and you're going to strike out a lot with that approach. So try to go for the base hits, try to create a relationship. In this case, you know, ask how the person's doing. They're human, you know, that's going to open the door for you. You know, you say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I'm not here to talk about business. I just want to see how you're doing. That's going to be a more warm call, you know, that no one ever does. Sometimes these people, their own family members don't do that. So to receive a call from a broker, a stranger, and kind of, you know, get that into, you know, that conversation going, would mean a lot to that person. Okay. And they're always going to remember that. So that's a very good point. To just fast forward on Julio's point, he ends up coming to the point where now this prospect is now considering to sell, and he's interviewing different brokers. Okay. And the brokers that he's interviewing specialize in retail. Okay. In this case, it's Marcus and Millichap, the retail group. And Julio is obviously trying to satisfy a 1031 for his other client. Obviously, we're mainly focused in industrial investments, right? So you want to lead them into that conversation and how you kind of manage that?
Yeah, well, but one of the things that I did in that process is, like, one of my visits to him, I came in with you know, I printed out some photos of a couple of our listings. You know, the listing, even though it was for rent on 36th Street, Miami Springs, you know, there's some nice photos, a nice building. So I printed out some of that and some of our you know, closing, and I brought him to him, right, to kind of explain to him what we do and what we've done for all the clients in the past. But by that point, I had already, you know, my client had already fulfilled his 1031. So it wasn't about the 1031, but obviously he still had an interest on this property. You know, so basically that was still my conversation with him. So eventually, when I met with him, eventually I took my client there, right? Once he told me that he had another offer and there was all the people visiting him, I said, I got to move fast, right? So I set up a tour. I convinced my client to go tour the property. If we're going to have a chance here, if this guy wants to take us seriously, let's go see it. Because, you know, he needs to see that we're serious. So I took him there. And while we touring the property, he's talking to me about the other offer, how much it was, what their expectations were. And then at that point, I said, I can't just leave here with my client. I got to stay and find out more information to see how much information he will give me, right? Because the guy's very talkative. By that time, I had already seen this guy maybe 4 or 5 times, right? So, and talking to him many more times on the phone. So he felt very comfortable talking to me. So I realized that, and I said, I'm going to ask questions until he tells me stop, right? So my client left, and then I sat down with him. He showed me the offer, and then he showed me, you know, 3-4 brochures, a booklet actually that Marcus and Millichap had left, and they have a listing. Michael, they have a listing across the street from this one, a retail, and he's giving me all these books and the offers and everything. And obviously at that point, I could say, who am I to compete with Marcus and Millichap? But I said, you know what? I've been invest so much time here. Let me just go and see what we could do here. So he called his brother, who's a realtor in the Keys, and he tells them obviously that I have brought a buyer and that he was willing to offer $3 million. They actually want a net $3 million. So I said, okay, you want a net $3 million? Here's what I can do for you. And I went for the kill. I told them I will list it without you signing anything. Let's bring it to the market. Let me continue to work on my buyer. But while we do that, let's not waste time. Let's expose it out there and let's see what other traction we get. Right. And then his brother actually said, I agree with you. We haven't even exposed the property to the market and we've gotten 2 offers. So, and he told his brother, listen, we can't go wrong here. He's actually want to list it without us signing anything. Let's give him a try. And his brother tells me, you know what? Thank you for doing that because I'm a broker and I've never listed a property without signing anything. Right? So it was more like a handshake type of thing, right? And then obviously the brother that is at the store, the guy that I've been talking to, told the guy in the Keys, they told him, yeah, I've actually met with him. He's been here many times and they agree. They agree on giving me the listing. Obviously, it's a chance. We're taking a chance, right? When we don't have anything signed, but at that point,
and I'm going to interrupt you again. Sorry, Julio. Not always do we do that. And the only scenario that we do that is in this case where Julio has had multiple conversations with this person. The person, they seem pretty comfortable. They don't seem cutthroat. And Julio's in a position where he's competing against another retail group that does require signatures because they're a national firm. That's the one advantage that we have as a boutique when we come up against larger firms. And this is usually dealing with a mom and pop. If we were to come up with this conversation to an like a large Fortune 500 company or whatever, they probably wouldn't go with us because they'd actually feel comfortable signing something. On the contrary, when you're dealing with a mom and pop, they would prefer not to sign something. That's a win. Obviously, when you have an actual client, what you're doing is you're exposing it to the market, you're getting all the leads, you're screening all of them, you know which is the right buyer. And in that scenario, you draft a commission agreement, then you have them sign the commission agreement before you proceed. But at least you open the net, you cast the net, you got one fish, you have the fish, now you got the commission agreement, you sign it, commission agreement signed, fish, go. Get it? That's how it works. You don't let go of the fish before you get this signed, okay? Because then if that happens, then you get into problems.
Right.
All right. That was good. That was a good testimonial there and how everything transpired into where you're at now. So that's great. And that deal size is what?
That's it's a $3 million. By the way, the other thing that he mentioned, he gave me the information of how much commission Marcus and Millichap was charging them, and I know that they don't charge a lot of commission because I've dealt with this in the past with all the deals, right? They usually 3-4% is where they're at, and he told me they're charging me 4% if it's 2 brokers and 3% if he brings the deal. So I matched that. I felt like I needed to match it, so that's at 4 points. It's $120,000 commission, between 90 and 120, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's good.
Or that's maybe 60. Actually, 60 because if you do 2 and 2, probably like $60,000 to $120,000 commission, depending on who brings the buyer and stuff. Yeah,
you could do that fairly quickly. You put something together, get the brochure going, get all the information, draft it up nice, put it into CRE, into a deal room, and share that link with possible buyers. So that way they have the, if you have a survey, you have a rent roll, you have a, profit and loss, whatever, put all that in the deal room. And then when someone is interested, they sign the CA, you share with them, and that's it. And you do it that way, that was good. And Jane would drop something up for you really quick, but I would start posting it already on Crexy,
as
of now.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. I started with Crexy. Yeah.
Start with Crexy at least and start getting some calls.
Yeah.
All right. Santi, James, you guys got anything?
I'm waiting to hear back from Mark regarding the listing. He did respond, so he's gonna get back to me. So 42,000 feet, Mapalaka in George Meta. So hopefully we get it posted and we get some calls from that and get some more leads.
Funny story with this guy. So this guy's a character, but I end up we end up talking, and I was kind of like saying, oh look, I've sold a few hotels in the past, whatever. The guy's lender, his lender was the son-in-law of who I had the lawsuit with back when I first started this in business with the whole Sagamore Hotel. He was the one of the owners of the hotel. The son-in-law, Neil Sazant, was the guy that I was in the whole litigation with. And he tells me, yeah, that's my lender. I was like, no way. What a small world. It was funny. Anyhow, that guy has a industrial base there. He's if he doesn't get a tenant there, he's gonna have to possibly sell. He doesn't want to sell. But I told him, look, same thing like you told him. We don't have to sign a listing agreement. It'll make it easier for you. Just let us put a sign, a banner out in the front. We'll screen all the calls and we'll get you a tenant. Now, if you lease it before, just let me know. Just kind of communicate with me that, hey, I lease this bay. This is the only one available. So we're on the same page.
Well, we did send him a listing agreement,
We
but
did he
they
asked us to send him.
said,
He said,
yeah,
send
he
me the
had,
listing. He said to send him the listing agreement because I guess he felt comfortable with us. So we did send him the listing agreement. Um, but his son's the attorney and he's gonna have his son revise it. So we're on standby. So we should follow up with him maybe today.
yeah.
But don't wait around just for that, okay? Just keep going. Don't stop.
100%.
All right. James.
Recently, George and I landed a pretty good tenant with from the sublisting I had. What's funny is that we were allowed to put a sign up for like a few weeks, and then the landlord told us or told the tenant, hey, we can't have that sign, they gotta take it off.
Oh, they
But
actually told Nami something?
they told you, no?
Oh yeah, but it was days. We had it there for like 3 days.
That's what I'm saying. And
And in
then
that 3 day window, we got the tenant.
the big tenant.
Yeah.
And then right now we've just
I
been
don't think
going back.
the landlord wasn't too happy about that. Well,
Yeah, they're not. But no, we've been going back and forth with regards to doing like a larger term because originally I had the sublisting for just the 1.4 acres and our tenant was interested in getting that long term. But the landlord now wanted to lease out the whole lot, which is like a 2.7 acre lot. And we've just been going back and forth right now with regards to just like smaller terms, like different things in the lease. But today we just got back the counter from the landlord. So we're gonna go ahead and hopefully get that done soon.
yeah. It looks like they accepted the 2 months.
Yeah.
There you go. I was fighting for those 2 months, though. He
Yeah.
just has to pay operating expenses now.
Yeah. And then once that happens, my tenant, the person I was originally representing, he's gonna go somewhere. We believe we have already a lot for him that he likes, and he's gonna get another one in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, great. Yeah. So see, that's why the listings are important. That's
That's
why we
exactly
gotta be
why.
attentive. We gotta be super attentive to the phone, to the leads that I send you. Guys, leads are hard to come by. That's why every time I send you guys a lead, you give it your all, give it your best to lock these deals in. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, my fault. Just to continue, this happened because originally George, we had a 1 acre listing on like on 73rd Court, and I was just basically I had the list, we had the listing, and I just casted a wide net. I called, like I literally went to Google, searched up trucking companies in my area, and I just hit that list hard. And this company, Harbor Transport, was one of them. And I took their regional manager there several times, I believe twice, and I sent him to another site. And then from there, nothing came to fruition, but I'll kept on calling him like once every 2 weeks or so to say, hey, did you decide, where you want to go finally? What's your plan? And they just kept on holding me off. And then the owner of the company finally called me early December and said, hey, is this James? And I guess it is. How may I help you? And he was the one that decided, hey, look, I understand that you've been talking to my regional manager for a while, and I want to give you the opportunity to help us out and try to sublease my space we're trying to move away from. And if you can help me out, find another location. And what's big was that he had Comwheel trying to sublease that space for him, and they couldn't do it.
That's
And
right.
we
Yep.
were hopefully able to get this done for him, and now go to another location.
That's right. That's right. Comro couldn't get it done. And then we step in 3 days.
Yeah,
Bam. Got to the
Bam.
subject.
just like that.
Guys, I'm gonna give you guys a story, just kind of going based off what you were talking about, and this just popped into my head because you said you were calling Yellow Pages, and you know how I penetrated the cold storage market and how I became kind of like how it all started was through the Yellow Pages. So that's a fun fact right there. Hector, my old broker, had a property that he was trying to sell in Medley, and he wanted me to find the buyer for it. So I remember he's like, get the Yellow Pages and look up all the refrigerated cold storage companies and call each one. And literally that's what I did. I called, and I bumped into Mr. Bob Sofer, which was the owner of the 501 Northeast 183rd Street cooler freezer building off the I-95. And it's funny because the conversation was very, very quick and simple. This old man owned this property for many years. He had Anko Cheese as a tenant, one tenant for the entire building. And this man, he used to operate for Publix, so he was very famous in the cold storage industry. He tells me, find me a tenant for my building because the landlord's only as good as his tenant, and they're leaving, and I'm gonna have a vacant 100. And when he said 100 and something thousand square feet building, I was like, writing everything down. I was like, oh my gosh, freaked out. And that was my first opportunity, and it all happened through Yellow Pages. So just so you guys know, it's not all about having CoStar and all these softwares. Yellow Pages, as long as you're contacting the right people and saying the right things, that's it. And that's how we got the listing, and I was able to sell it to the Mandage Group, and then I sold that building twice, and hopefully now a third time. But that's how it all happened. It was all through the Yellow Pages. So that was a little fun fact I wanted to share with you guys. All right, guys, I want to go over this with you guys because I think it's very important. And every time I say it, I don't know if you guys are getting it. I don't know if you guys are doing it, but I think it's important just so everybody's organized. Does everybody here have a prospect list, like an Excel list of who they're calling, like tenants and then owners? Like, do they have two lists that they're going after, like religiously calling? Does everybody have that? Julio, you got that?
I have owners, I don't have tenants.
Okay, so you're going after owners. That's fine. As long as you have a list that you're kind of you're attacking, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that everybody has a list, okay? Does everybody have an organizational database list? Like, how are you guys getting organized? Do you guys know how to get organized? Like, you have the list that you're attacking, and you have somebody say, yes, I'm interested, whatever, and then that's a prospect, and you talk to them. Do you extract that and do you put it somewhere else? Like, okay, I'm going to put them in my database.
Yeah,
Do you
that's what I have.
like
I have a general list of a lot of truck and trailer companies,
that you've
also
talked
like
to?
outdoor storage, and then from there, like several people I've spoken to, I have a list of people who would be interested potentially. Those are prospects.
So those are your kind of your leads and your prospects. You
Yeah,
extract
every time we've had a new like listing, I call them first, say, hey, look, this just came available. Do you want
because they know you, they've talked to you before.
Yes.
So those are okay. So those you extract into your like leads database, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys have that? Julio, you have that?
I have one that want to perfect because it's not where it needs to be, and wanted to get the emails and everything else into an Excel. So of owners, owners and then buyers, obviously.
All right, so this is how I have mine organized, guys, and this is like you guys can kind of model it after. And remember, this is just Excel. I have it in sheets, but when we're getting we're getting Wise Agent as a CRM, but it's important the way you segment it, because when you upload it into Wise or whatever CRM that we get, at least you have it categorized by by tabs, right? Like I'll have all my closed clients when I want to send something to my closed clients, or if I want to, let's say, set up an event one day to invite all my closed clients to, at least I have them all there, you know, by phone number. I have their birth dates, and I'll have it segmented with AM cards, and I'll put their birthdays, and automatically AM cards will send them a card like a happy birthday. And I think that's important when we're in the service business. We're in the service business, guys. It's all about being serviceful on top of mind. We have to make it a goal that these people have no other choice than to know us as that category of whatever that is, which is a commercial real estate broker. When they think of commercial real estate broker, they got to think about you. It's like unavoidable. You get what I'm saying? You show up in their mail, you show up in their voicemails, you show up in their text messages, and you show up in their emails. Like that's the goal. Okay. So that's how I have that segmented. Active leads. I mean, I have it just because when I first started and I would work on requirements, I would just put all my active leads into one list, and I'll have them by name, email, phone number, whatever business type, comments, right? You could segment it that way. There's a few brokers I think Jane took over this and she started putting them here. You know, I guess she identifies when we upload them into the CRM, they would be categorized or hashtagged by broker or whatever. Tenants has to be a clean list because all your tenants are going to go in there, right? They have it backwards here. They put comments first, but then name, phone number, email, address, company name, and then notes. This goes back to all the way when I started. Oh, look, Ben Kent. This is the guy, Greg. We got to get on top of this guy. All right, you see, these are all tenants. You got all these tenants in an email, company name, notes, etc. You have these segmented. So the time that we do have the CRM and we're all collaborating together, which I've been very picky on the CRM. That's why we don't have one yet. And these are kind of REITs. You know, I put all REITs there, and then owners as well. Okay. So when you have like constant contact, you have each one by tenants, owners, you know, stuff like that. And then you can always hashtag them here. Are they industrial? Are they retail? Are they cold storage? So these would be the hashtag tab. And then you could just create different hashtags, whatever you want, but just stick to the same one consistently. If you do capital F, stick with capital F for farm. If you do lowercase, stick to lowercase the whole time. So that way, when you do it, when you swap it into the CRM, everything is uniformed, everything is hashtagged into that category. Okay. Who is attacking Doral? Who's Doral?
I'm doing some of Dural. I'm doing Dural.
Whatever happened to Cusco?
Ale Cusco, he wanted too much for his piece.
Too much, right?
Yeah.
Hialeah, Brenda, 225. I think if we put 225 in front of her, she'll sell.
She sold already.
She sold this?
That's the one you emailed me, right? She sold
Yeah.
sub 200.
Did you ever speak to her?
Me?
Yeah?
No, she sold back in November.
No, that's probably incorrect. You need to speak to her. Remember, there's a lot of the addresses there are very tricky. You need to speak to her personally. Say she has like 3 properties. Okay? You might be confused with another one. So call and confirm and speak to her.
Okay.
Actually, hold on. Julio, you're Hialeah, right?
Yeah, I'm calling Hialeah. Yeah.
So you're gonna call this lady Brenda. Call this lady Brenda. I'm gonna send it to you now. She's a multi-tenant owner, industrial, and she would consider herself, but she wants a pretty hefty number. Go based off of 2. She has 3 buildings, industrial, Hialeah, and they're all below market. Remember this number 225. She might say she wants 250 now or 240 something, but stick to the 225. I think that 225 number is doable today.
Okay.
Obviously, do your research on the you know, this guy Penny Roberts.
Do you have the addresses of at least one of her buildings, George, or no?
I'm gonna forward you an email with the information.
Yeah, here it is. All right, guys. Greg, this one's for you. This one is Doral. Hound them. When I say hound.
What's that?
Just sent it.
Thank you.
This is what working in a team is, guys. Stuff that I have that I know are gonna sell. It's all about timing. This industry is all about timing. So I gotta go back and really think about it. You know, like who is it that was dripping on? These people were like from 2 years ago, but they have a nice multi-bay. Initially, they wanted a lease. See, they have seller there. I have a seller there. George Pino from Windows. That's Julio. All right, guys, this is what I wanted to go over with you guys. So you guys are you know, have your stuff organized, you know. Hey, I'm gonna send this one to you, Santi. This guy Dale.
I've been calling that guy forever.
He ever respond to you?
He called me back like at 8 p.m. and it's like an old guy and he couldn't hear me. He's like, "Oh, hello," but I'll keep calling.
That guy is he travels like in a camper. But he asked me, he's I don't know, this guy's an interesting character, but he had asked me to do an analysis for him at one time. There's a lot of leads here. It's just a matter of going through them and looking to see who's who, but there's leads there for sure. Guys, remember this business is not about having multiple like sellers and leads or whatever. If you have a handful of solid clients that work with you, you're fine. If you have a solid handful of clients, don't go crazy and think about, oh, I need this, I need that, I need that. If you can just focus on just a small handful, you guys will do fine. Okay. So I'm gonna stop sharing that there. So I just want to make sure you guys are all organized. You guys are all organized. Okay. So that was the database. You have your list. Everybody has their list. Farming and hunting. Everybody knows the difference between farming and hunting. Yes. Hunting is you're swinging for the fences all the time. You're going to miss a lot. So I don't recommend hunting all the time. You only hunt when you have a very serious buyer. Then you start getting into hunting mode. That hunting can always be turned into a farm approach. If you're hunting for a serious requirement that you have a 1031, you're calling. You're saying, hey, I have a 1031 buyer. No, I'm not interested. And they want to hang up. Then you try to transition that into a farm approach. Hey, no worries. Hey, I'm a very active broker in the area. I don't think we've met before. I help, you kind of give them your spiel, right? I've been doing this. I've been in the industry for many years. What kind of business are you guys in? And you try to set up a meeting and try to kind of, give them value. You always want to give, okay? Giving opens doors. What are you going to give? Market report, what's sold in the area, anything of value to them. Think about it. If you own the property, wouldn't you appreciate a broker calling you and saying, hey, did you know that this property sold down the street for X? Did you know that property down the street that was 20,000 square feet just leased at X? That information is valuable. And if you have that information, you're sharing it, you're valuable because you're giving them value, right? If you're an owner, think about it. If you're an owner of a commercial property, you definitely want brokers to give you information. Those are the brokers you want on your side, right? So always know that. All right. You guys, I want to share this with you because this is very important. We're a team, okay? We're all a team here. We're all representing Smith, right? The brand. And I need you guys to always keep that in mind when out there prospecting. I need you guys to always keep it professional, okay? Respectful. Keep your ethics high. Go above and beyond always, okay? Know your market. Very important. Mondays today is one of those days where it's a little bit slower. If you're working on reports, that's fine. But take some time and understand the market because sometimes we get going, and we forget to check in on the market. Where's the market at today? What rented? What sold? These little details are shifts that start to happen in your market, and you need to keep a pulse on that. Very important. Professionalism, serviceful, knowledgeable, persistent, and consistent. Okay? This business is all about being consistent and persistent. Okay? Don't get overwhelmed. Just stay consistent and persistent to doing what you need to do. The more you do that each and every day, if you're starting this industry, focus on doing this for 2 years. 2-year span, being consistent. Keep it basic, keep it simple. Do it every day for 2 years. At the end of those 2 years, you're going to see how far you've gotten. Okay? Try not to look around too much. Don't get distracted. Just stick to the basics for those 2 years and keep doing that routine. Okay? In that routine, make sure obviously you're organized, right? You need to have the right tools in place. You need to stay organized. You need to have your list. Continue calling. Segment everything into the proper list. So when you start reminding and staying up to date, keeping your clients up to date, everything is organized. Last but not least, guys, your time. Your time is the most important thing you have. Okay? I need you to protect it with everything. I mean, it's the most important thing you have, okay? Set your boundaries and protect. You're going to have better results and less burnout. Okay? Be intentional. Be intentional when you're prospecting, negotiating, and building relationships. Always have a goal in mind. When you're doing these things, think about your time. Be intentional into what you're doing. Don't just go with the motions or with the flow. You're gonna burn out. Be intentional specifically when you're doing. I know there's a quadrant. I'm gonna try to get that quadrant for you guys. It's called the Eisenhower matrix. Prioritize tasks based on urgency and importance. So there's a square, really. There's 4 quadrants, right? On the top left, you have urgent and important. Those are the things you need to do now. In the quadrant right under that one, there's urgent but not important. So those you delegate. In the quadrant over here to the top right, you have important but not urgent. So you schedule it. Those you schedule. And then the bottom right, you have neither. So those you eliminate. This is going to help you avoid overanalyzing. It helps you avoid overanalyzing low priority tasks. I struggled a lot with this. I would try to prioritize everything. So this quadrant would definitely help. Urgent and important, you do it now. Urgent but not important, you delegate. Important but not urgent, you schedule it. That's going to help you save a lot of time. This is a good way of thinking, guys. I'm going to share this last thing with you guys. It's called inversion thinking. Inversion thinking. Stop asking, how do I succeed? Instead, ask, what guarantees my failure? What guarantees your failure? Analysis paralysis. When you stay analyzing too much, you get, you paralyze. You just keep thinking about the same thing and what you're going to do. Waiting for the perfect timing and fear of judgment. Those things right there will guarantee your failure. Fear of judgment. It's a good one. Waiting for the perfect timing and analysis paralysis. Eliminate those and watch your speed for action soar.